Hello, my name is Annette Pateman, and today I'm going to be talking to you about a Black feminist activist named Olive Morris. Olive was my cousin, and my first cousin. She was the daughter of my father's sister. So she was a very close cousin, and I knew her very well. And she was very close to my family. Excuse me. Okay, so who was Olive? Well, she was a Black British woman. She was born in Jamaica, but she grew up and lived for most of her life in England, in the UK. And it was quite an interesting time then. And although Olive showed a lot of promise at school, she didn't leave school with a lot of qualifications. She worked very hard. She went to what was called night school, which is a kind of college that you go to. It's a college that you would go to in the evening. So they call it night school. So you go to work in the day and then you go to night school, or Olive went to night school in the evening. And so she did her education in a way, the hard way. She worked a full-time job and then went in the evening to college and got her qualifications. And with those qualifications, she went to university. She went to Manchester University and did very well and got a degree in a humanities subject. And her activism, she was always interested in equal rights, equalities, anti-racism work, very much so. But it really came to the fore when she was at university, and she started various associations and groups there. So she also lived, after she finished at university, she lived in Brixton. And Brixton, South London is, I think in parts of Toronto, they have a place called Little Jamaica. Well, Brixton, South London in the UK is a place where the Black community is a bit of a hub for the Black community, or was at that time. And for many, many years and decades afterwards, it has undergone a gentrification recently. In the last 5-10 years, Brixton has undergone a gentrification process. But when I was growing up, it was very much a hub for Black people, and there were black markets where you could shop and get traditional foods from the Caribbean, from Africa, and people would meet there and talk. I came very close to being born in Brixton, but my father decided that there was a nice house in another part of London, South London. So that's where I grew up. I grew up in South London, which is obviously where I met Olive Morris. Okay, so Olive is now a very well-known person. In fact, there was a picture put up of Olive on Google. And I remember my various family members said, "Oh, Olive's on Google." So she was put there, and the picture they used was a picture of her speaking into her microphone, into her megaphone, because that is a very famous picture of Olive. So one of her symbols is the megaphone. So this is a picture of Olive. I'm going to show you another picture. This is the typical picture that people often see of Olive. There she is with the megaphone. And another picture of Olive. So this is her here. Okay. So another thing I'd like to say about Olive is there has been a very acclaimed series called the Small Axe series. It consists of a number of number of films, number of episodes. It's got around about an hour each. The film, you can get the film. It's available at the moment on, I think, Amazon Prime. But anyway, it's an excellent series of films by the acclaimed director, black director Steve McQueen. The films cover, one of the films, it's called The Mangrove, is about, it's about a place in Notting Hill where black people used to gather. And this particular place was raided a lot at that time, back in the 1950s, 60s. It was raided a lot by the police, and what happened, and what happened with the community, and what happened with that place. But one of the characters has a megaphone and has the short hair that we often see that Olive wore. And so I often wonder whether they had Olive in mind when they were making that film. So there she is there. So she is an acclaimed and recognized as being a black feminist, anti-racist activist. And so I wanted to share my memories of Olive Morris with you. So I have written a poem, which I'd like to share with you about Olive. I'm going to play a little bit of I called it the Mbira in one of my other videos. And in fact, it's called a kalinda. Here, I haven't got the bag for it, but it's called a kalimba, it's very similar to the Mbira in that you've got the metal keys. The Mbira has often got metal keys, but it's got 2 rows or more than 1 rows, and sometimes it's set on a kora or a hollowed out gourd if it's used traditionally in Africa. But this is a very similar instrument, but it makes a lovely sound, and I'd like to play a little bit of it for you. Okay. Olive Morris. Olive Morris, child of my father's sister, luminous in heart and spirit. Olive Morris, who didn't like her name, and so asked my family to call her Madge. A fighter for women's rights, founder of the Organization of Women of African and Asian Descent, OAD. The founder of Brixton Black Women's Group. In Manchester, she helped to start the Black Women's Mutual Aid Group and the Black Women's Cooperative. A member of the British Black Panther movement. A fighter for people's rights. She lived in Brixton, South London, in an empty house. The house had stood empty for a long time, years probably, and she was a student and needed somewhere to live. And so she squatted the property. She decided to live in that empty house. We, her family, loved her. We visited her there. Visited her in that squat in Brixton. My mother, father, and me, and my sister. My father took her picture many times. He goes unacknowledged. Olive was photogenic. We chatted about all sorts of things. And then one day she said she had a pain in her lower back. She said it was probably cancer. And she laughed. And so did we. We dismissed it immediately. She ate cereal out of a blue plastic bowl. She was a humble person with a short, soft fro and a beautiful, brilliant smile. She had been to China. We knew this, as she had told us that she was going. Here you are, she said. She had brought me a rhodium nibbed tipped pen, a fountain pen. She knew I liked to write, and so she brought me this gift from her visit to China. She had loved the visit and bought something for each of my family, each member. I was touched as I knew she didn't have a lot of money. She had put everything into her China trip. There was a small piece of jade and pictures for my sisters and brothers. Olive was born in 1952. She loved me. She saw me. She asked me to carry on her work. She whispered this to me as I leaned close to her bed when she was traveling to that other place, and close to the end. You are clever. Use your gifts and carry on my work. You can do it. You have what it takes. This is what she said to me, quietly, so that no one else heard. She smiled at me then, even though it was difficult. So that's my narrative poem about Olive Morris, and she is commemorated on a building in Brixton called Olive Morris House. And also she is found on what we call the Brixton Pound. So you will know that the currency in the UK is the pound, the GBP, the Great British Pound. And in this part of Brixton, to stimulate the economy, a number of businesses got together and used what they called a Brixton Pound. So if you had those, you could use those in shops as currency. So on that British pound, on that Brixton Pound, there was also a picture of Olive with her megaphone. And there's a picture in Olive Morris House in Brixton. And that picture is likely taken by my father, who was a community photographer for the Black community at that time. Okay, so something a little bit there about Olive Morris, who sadly passed away quite young. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about Olive Morris, the Black feminist, anti-racist activist, who now is known all over the world, and some of her works are studied in certain universities and so on. So thank you for listening. Thank you.